to make this beginner scarf, you will need the 100 meters of super bulky Rambouillet wool and the 10 millimeter needles, all found in this kit. The first thing you're going to do is to make a slip knot. I'll show you again. You're going to make the slip knot around, gently pull the little loop through, and then you're going to slide the needle onto the slip knot. Holding the needle in your right hand, you're going to cast on 10 stitches. Move the yarn around your left finger, your index finger, around, put the needle through, slide it off onto the needle. Around your finger, slide it off your finger, onto the needle. Continue doing this until you have 10 stitches on your needle. Remember not to make your stitches too tight, nor do you want them to be too loose. Be gentle with the wool. After you have your 10 stitches on, you're going to move the needle into your left hand that has the stitches on it, and using the long end that's attached to the skein, you're going to start to knit your first row. Put the needle through the first loop, wrap your yarn around the needle, back through the loop, slide it off. Try it again. In, around, back through, and off. Remember, try not to make your stitches too tight, nor do you want them to be too loose. Be gentle with the wool and don't pull too tightly. In, around, through, and off. And you're going to continue until all 10 stitches have been knit. Take your time. The first row sometimes can be the trickiest. In, around, back through, slide it off. We're almost to the end. A couple more. In, around, back through, and off. And when you get to the end and you have knit all your stitches off the needle, this is the last one, then you're going to move your needle with the wool, the cast on stitches, onto your left hand to start knitting. Make sure you're knitting with the long tail that's attached to the skein of wool. And you're going to knit your second row into the loop, around the needle, back through, slide it off. Remember not to make your stitches too tight. They should slide easily off the needle. You don't want to pull too tightly on the wool. Sometimes it can pull apart if you pull too tightly. So be gentle with the wool. You're going to continue knitting until all the stitches are off the needle, all 10 stitches. And then you'll again move your needle with the work into your left hand and start again. So we're almost at the last stitch. You're going to move the work into your left hand. I'm a right-handed knitter, so this is how I do it. If I have put 10 stitches on the needle, if you want a wider scarf, you would cast on maybe 15 stitches, or as wide as you want your scarf. And you're going to continue knitting this row until all 10 stitches are off the needle. All the time remembering to not keep your stitches too tight. They should slide nicely off the needle without having to yank on it. And you will continue knitting each row just like this. Moving your wool to the left hand and knit row after row until your scarf is as long as you want it to be. I'm going to make a long scarf, So now my scarf is about 45 inches long. If I want to, I could sew the ends together and have an infinity scarf because my scarf is so long. And now it's time to cast off the stitches. So you are going to hold the work in your left hand and knit 2 stitches. 1, 2. Just knit the 2 stitches. Then you're going to take the first stitch you knit, put your needle in through that stitch, loop it over the second stitch, slide it off, and you're left with 1 stitch on the needle. This is called casting off, and we're going to be casting off all the stitches. Knit another stitch. So you have 2 stitches on the needle. Take the first stitch you knit, slide it over the second and off the needle. Now you've got the 1 stitch. Continue, knit another stitch. There's your 2 stitches. Slide the first one over the second one and off. Knit another stitch. First stitch goes over the second stitch and off the needle. Again, this is called casting off the stitches. You're going to continue until there's 1 stitch left. And so knit the last stitch. So both stitches are on your needle. Then you're going to pull the loop a little, cut about a 6 or 8 inch tail at the end. And then draw that through the loop and gently pull it. And then using your finger, this wool is thick enough, you can use just your finger to weave in the loose end because it is pretty thick. Or if you have a darning needle with a blunt end and a large loop at the end, you might want to try that. But this kit does not have that. The wool is thick enough, it's quite doable to use just your fingers for weaving in the end. I'll show you if you do have a needle, what it would look like. And you're going to weave this end in, and then you'll go to the beginning of the scarf and neatly weave the short end of the tail end so that both ends have been woven in nice and neatly. Okay, so back, weave in with your fingers nice and neatly, and then tuck in the last piece, snip off the end when you have woven it in. Remember to weave in the other end as well. And then your scarf is all finished. Your first super bulky Rambouillet beginner scarf.